friends at BNSME. Thanks for everybody for taking time out of your Friday afternoon and spending your lunch hour with me. My goal today is to take about half an hour, 35 minutes or so, share some information, some techniques, some tips that I picked up along the way, some strategies about productive sales prospecting. So with that, Matt, thank you very much for the introduction. I feel funny about sometimes saying 20 years that I date myself. So 15 plus years, although at that 20 stage of sales and leadership experience, my passion, my focus is really helping improve businesses, helping their sales operations, helping increase their revenue. For those that have worked with me, those that know me, very process-driven, almost nerdy from a process-driven standpoint to improve overall sales functions, sales processes. And been a BNSME member for over 3 years now. Some of the best friends, the best connections that I've made over the course of the last few years are either direct memberships of BNSME or first level connections from BNSME friends. So thank you, and I appreciate everybody joining us today. So let's start with this. Let's really define prospecting. When we're talking about prospecting, what does that mean? So we're going to take a little hop into the Wayback Machine, to California Gold Rush 1849 and focus on what was prospecting, what were prospectors doing. And that was, mining, digging, panning, sifting through the silt and dirt, overturning stones, looking for gold to turn into money. The California Gold Rush 1849, mining for gold, prospecting for gold. So as we talk about sales prospecting, it's not all that different. It's doing the research, engage, nurture, taking people through your sales process to turn them into eventual paying customers and revenue for your business. In fact, the Digital Sales Institute defines sales prospecting as the sales activity involved in researching, engaging, and nurturing new prospects so they eventually become paying customers and revenue for your business. So as we look at a sales funnel, there is a process that happens in taking someone from a lead to a prospect to an opportunity to a paying customer to revenue for your business. And we're going to talk a little bit about that flow, that sales funnel. So as I work to prepare this and talk today, I wanted to break down sales prospecting into 5 overarching categories. And I realize, and the challenge in doing this is that there are some of these things that any individual one of these could probably be an hour talk in and of themselves. So I want to make sure that I quick hit some information, give you some key takeaways, but we're going to focus on 5 overarching themes. 2 of them before the prospecting ever happens. So we're looking at define, understand, prepare. Those things that you do before you ever venture down the path of prospecting. Also, before you pick up the phone, before you send that email, before you meet someone, what's your schedule and commitment to your sales prospecting efforts? Then we're going to shift into talking about your tech stack, talking about some tools, technology that you can use to help you with your prospecting efforts. Some outreach strategies. You're going to hear me use the terms cadence, sequence, sales activity, sales outreach strategies. And then we're going to wrap up with just some personal recommendations on sharpening your saw, sharpening your skill set, helping improve that skill gap to make your prospecting be as successful as possible. So I'm going to spend a few minutes here because these things before you start prospecting are really important. Define, understand, prepare. So when I'm talking about define your role and responsibility as it comes to business development, as it comes to prospecting. Maybe that role is defined for you, but know going into this, have that definition of, is my role 100% new business development? Is it 100% account management? Is it 50-50? Knowing what your purpose and your strategy is when you're reaching out, when you're looking to convert those leads into prospects. And I'm going to talk in a couple minutes about the time commitment and defining your role and responsibility and your purpose and strategy will help you determine the amount of time that it takes to do that. From there, we build goals and objectives. Are you enterprise level sales where you can make your living in doing 2 new sales a year? Is it 2 sales a month? Is it 2 a week? Is it 2 a day? Defining those objectives, defining your purpose and strategy will help you build out those goals and objectives so you can commit the right amount of time to do this. So now we're going to talk about the difference between lead and prospect. I've heard those 2 terms used interchangeably, and they are very, very different things. So let's build a little understanding around lead versus prospect. So a lead is a prospect that has not yet been qualified. As I showed you before, it's at the top of the sales funnel, likely within your target market, but you don't know much about them yet. It's someone that would be a good person, a good business to have a conversation with. Now, conversely, a lead is a prospect, a prospect is a lead that's been qualified in some way. You'll find at this stage that they align with your target audience, they align with your ideal customer and your buyer persona. Now they're moving to the next stage of that sales funnel. And one of the key milestones, one of the key differentiators in this is that there's some sort of 2-way communication. You've talked to them, they've reached out to you, there's a 2-way communication in there. So let's give some examples here. So leads. Someone that is an email address in your CRM. Haven't talked to them yet, but you have an email address. And again, these examples are all under the premise that they check your boxes of lead scoring. They check your boxes of target market, buyer personas, their ideal customer. So strangers in an email list, new connections that you just recently made on LinkedIn, someone that's commented on a blog post or shared your social media post about your products and services, or in something that we're going to talk a little bit about more, or names that you've purchased from a third-party data site, a third-party marketing firm. And when I talk about understand, not only understand the difference between those 2 and your target market and your buyer personas, but understand your products and services, how they fit into the market, how your products and services solve a key problem, how your products and services are a medication for a pain point that your ideal prospect has. And now the last step of this, and I feel is the most important, is prepare. Do your homework, do your research, bring some industry insights to the game here, to the conversation. Bring something that you know about their business, something that you've recently read, an article, an award they've won, something that brings the knowledge and the understanding that you have some value to bring to that conversation. And practice, practice, practice. Rehearse. Practice the things that you're going to say. Say them in a mirror. If you're practicing voice messages, practice leaving that voice message for yourself. Call it. Hear your own voice, for as challenging as that might be, but hear what it sounds like. Get to the point where you say it so much, and we've heard the expression that in order to sound unrehearsed, you have to be well rehearsed. You have to practice this. Get used to saying these things. And prepare some potential objections. I'm going to pause. I'm not talking about objections that happen later on in the process. I'm talking about initial first level stiff arm objections that you get. So to tie these things together, define your role and responsibility, what your purpose and strategy is, understand who your target market is, what value you bring to the table, and have some preparation, some homework before you ever make that call, send that email, build out that list. Matt, I've seen a couple times that the couple things have come through in chat. I'm going to pause for just a second and see if there's any questions that I can quickly answer before we move on.
There is one question from Melanie
okay.
that's related to LinkedIn. So I'm not sure if you're going to cover that at some point. But the question
I am. That is a great question. I will spend some time on LinkedIn in just a couple minutes.
Perfect.
Melanie, are you okay waiting about 5 minutes to hear about LinkedIn?
I know Melanie well, and she's very patient.
Perfect. Uh, All right. So now we're gonna cast the vision, even though we're really focusing on that lead to prospect stage, and that's the goal. That's really the focus of what we're talking about today. But I want to cast the vision of what this looks like flowing down the sales funnel and through your sales pipeline, through your sales cycle. So 5 key stages here to converting a lead to a prospect. And as I mentioned before, most important, research. Determine the quality of that lead. Get an understanding, evaluate the probability that that lead will become a prospect and eventually has a likelihood of becoming a customer of your business. The next goal in this is prospect, to get to a connect, get to a two-way exchange of information, a phone call, email exchange. And the goal in this, if to get to that connection, even if you have to work through a gatekeeper, we've all had challenges of working through gatekeepers, but to get to the point where you are speaking to the decision maker, the person that has the buying authority for your products and services. Now, connect. This is likely the first phone call. The goal in this is to schedule that next meeting. Something that I've learned many years ago that stuck with me is in this first conversation, the only thing that you're selling is the meeting. Selling the necessity to spend 15, 20, 30 more minutes with you, and to get to the point where you are having a discovery call, a discovery meeting to evaluate and assess them as an ideal prospect to turn them into a potential sales opportunity. Now, if you're in phone sales, maybe that what you're selling at this stage is not a face-to-face meeting, but selling the next 5 minutes of the conversation to get to the point where you are having a discovery, learning about their business. Now, from that discovery, you're going to take that information that you learn in there and really educate and evaluate your prospect, your potential opportunity on their needs, on how your product and service identifies their pain points, solves a problem for them, their business needs. You align their goals, provide value, overcome objections. In many sales cycles, in many sales processes, this number 4 can sometimes be broken up into 3 or 4 different steps. It may be spread out over an extended period of time, but the goal in this, the overarching theme, is to really leverage your products and services and how they best suit your potential prospect. And the goal in all this, the last point of this, is making the cash register ring, getting to a close, converting that opportunity into a customer. And while we set the stage here for it to be close won, sometimes that decision is a no, and that's okay. But understanding the yeses and the nos, evaluating close ratio, and I cast this vision so that you can see, going back to goals and objectives, how many prospects do you need to reach out to? How many of those turn into meetings? How many of those turn into opportunities, into close won business? And then evaluate your ratio so that you can reverse engineer and understand how many that you need to talk to from the beginning. So a key point in preparation for prospecting is your schedule and your commitment, your time commitment, your psychological commitment to this. But some key things in here: set a schedule, block out time, block out the right time. And when I say right time, not only the time of day, the days of the week, but the right amount of time. And I was recently introduced by a new connection to Parkinson's first law, and that states work expands to fill the time available for its completion. And the reason that I talk about this now is that if your goals and objectives mean that you have to make 20 prospecting calls a day, well, don't block out 4 hours for that, because if you do, it will take you 4 hours to do it. I believe in realistic schedules. I believe in realistic time frames here. And I also believe in working in short power bursts, new business blitz time when it comes to prospecting. Set aside an hour. I firmly believe that if it's 20 calls a day, you can knock that out in an hour and move on to the rest of the day. And that will also help with the next stage of this, with task management. And I specifically say in here, task management, not time management. Time management is a lie. You cannot manage time. There's always going to be 60 seconds in every minute, 60 minutes in every hour, 24 hours in every day. Time doesn't come, the clock doesn't come with a pause button, a rewind button, a fast forward button, so you cannot manage time. You can manage your activities, your tasks within that time frame. And don't multitask. Multitasking is a myth, which leads to the next point here. Eliminate distractions. Eliminate any distractions. We know one of the biggest saboteurs of prospecting and new business development are the distractions, the emails, the phone calls, the texts that come in. Turn your phone off, be hyper focused on your business, your new business prospecting time, and plan for the unplanned. And what do I mean by that? We all know at any given time throughout the course of the day, you're going to get an email from someone on your team, from a boss, from a subordinate, from someone, an unhappy client. Someone is going to do their best to get in the way of your prospecting time. Account for it, plan for it, block that time out and say, no matter what happens, barring earth-shattering emergencies, I'm going to address that problem in an hour because I'm going to be faithful to my prospecting time. I've scheduled this time. I'm going to manage my tasks and activities, and I'm not going to let anything get in the way of this. And really, the most important thing in this is have fun. Be yourself, but have fun in this. Hopefully, at the end of our time today, there's some techniques, some tips that you can take away. I'm going to share with you some resources to help you sharpen your skills, but take them and make them your own. Be you, be yourself, have fun with this. But put in the effort and maintain a positive attitude. An author that's had an incredible influence on me, Keith Rosen, and I'll mention one of his books a little bit later on, but don't let negative assumptions about what your expectations are impact your activity. You're going to hear no. You're going to hear someone that says, hey, I don't want to talk to you. I don't need your products and services. Instead, focus your energy on the positive outcome that you want to see happen. And if they say no, it's business. It's not personal, because you realize that you approach this from a numbers standpoint that, hey, I got to reach out to, I got to connect, I got to build my pipeline of 15 new opportunities. If one person says no, then I can check them off my list and move on to the rest. We're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about technology, your tech stack, your tools. Before I do that, any questions at this stage, Matt?
No, actually, there's just some compliments and some comments. But you're doing a great job of conveying the message so far.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. That was the goal today. So tech stack. First and foremost, I intentionally put it in here as a CRM. There are tons of examples out there, but there's probably no single better tool to use for business development, for sales prospecting than a CRM. Ton of examples. Do the research on your company. Your organizations may already have this. You may choose to use some of these. Some of these are free. You can do a free version of this. But a CRM is going to help with some very, very key things. Maintaining a centralized database, building out contact records, schedules, sales reports, forecasting. It is shown, data shows that CRMs help improve sales results, help retain customers, help shorten sales cycle. If there's nothing else that you take away from this today, use a CRM. And not a CRM in a silo, and why I have some other things on here. Melanie, you asked about CRM, about LinkedIn. I'm going to touch on that a little bit, but tying in other pieces of technology here and integrating those things. So LinkedIn. I wish that 20 years ago in my career, LinkedIn existed and it was as robust as it is today. Because you really, if you think about LinkedIn, you can identify any company that you're searching for, the people that work for that company. Be active on LinkedIn, comment, share, post, follow groups, follow hashtags, be as active as you can and leverage those connections. I'm gonna talk a little bit about this more from a prospecting standpoint, but leverage the connections that you have. Ask for introductions. when doing your research, find out who works for that company and see if you know somebody that knows them as well that can help do a warm handoff. So key piece of this, using and leveraging LinkedIn. As I mentioned before, a calendar and a schedule. There are a ton of calendars out there. There's scheduling apps. Most people know Calendly, but there's Google Calendar, Doodle. There's a ton of examples out there. You have calendars on your phone. You have calendars through Microsoft Office, but maintain a healthy, robust calendar. Make it easy for people to block time on your schedule. Make it easy for you to schedule time with them. So something that I'm going to spend a minute on, one of the tasks Matt gave me today in saying, hey, and all the things that you talk about, give some ideas on where people can find prospecting lists. So third-party data sites are a great opportunity. In LinkedIn Sales Professional, LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a great, I tied it in with LinkedIn, but really the Sales Navigator aspect of this is a great third-party site. You can build out accounts lists. You can get really, really deep into understanding, looking for geographies, job titles, very, very specific information. It is a paid service, but LinkedIn does offer it for free for the first 30 days. So I encourage you, take it for a spin and see if it's something that helps you in your prospecting. But other third-party sites, a name that most people know, ZoomInfo, but Prospect.io, Apollo, Uplead, Seamless, Exact Data, Discover.org. There's a ton of resources out there where, based on your criteria, your buying personas, your target market audience geographies, you can build out and purchase lists. And there's some things that you can access for free. And then the last two, because they tie in and they integrate so well with CRM and calendars, is Google. Google has a ton of resources with Google Workspace. If you're managing projects, if you're sharing information, shared docs, files, project schedules, Google, and of course, Microsoft Office, using email. If you come to this with something as simple as an Excel spreadsheet where you're tracking the information, you have some specific details about your target market and who you're reaching out to, that's something. So use the technology that best you can, but interweave and integrate these different forms of technology. So now we're going to shift gears into some strategies here. I mentioned before, you're going to hear me use the term cadence, sequence. I'll use those interchangeably, but what we're really talking about is a set of activities that a sales professional follows to connect and build a relationship with a prospect. LinkedIn, this has come up a few times, we're going to say it again, but from a prospecting standpoint, leverage those connections that you have. Ask for recommendations, ask for warm handoffs. And networking, as we're talking to our friends here at BNSME, obviously we know the power of business networking, using the resources, leveraging the people that you have to make connections for yourself and help make connections for others. And thank you again, Tony Blasting, for the conversation that we had last week about referrals. And that is a key piece of prospecting. That number one, I think that it should be made as part of your sales process, part of the close, asking for that business referral. Mr. and Mrs. CEO, I've presented to you a solution. We've agreed that this is the right solution for your business. You've signed off, you've agreed on this. Who else do you know in your network that you can refer me to that, based on the things, the solutions that I provide, the pains that I've solved for you, who is someone that you think should also see this too? Make that part of your process, ask for referrals. In addition to that, go back on loyal customers, people that are brand ambassadors of yours, people that speak well of you, and ask them how you can make referrals for them and how they can make referrals for you. Referrals and that strategy is a two-way street. So seek those people out, but ask. You can't get a referral if you don't ask for it. All right, we're going to spend a couple minutes talking about some of the data behind the key elements of a sales cadence or sales sequence. So we're really talking about 4 key data points. Attempts. That's the number of touch points that are made, the media that you use. Typically, when we talk about media, that's a type of communication used, but we're talking about one of three things for the most part: phone, email, social media, which in this case is often LinkedIn. The duration, how much time you spend from beginning to end, from the first attempt to the last attempt, and what's the optimal time in this. And then the spacing. There are tons of examples of different types of cadences. Your organization, your sales cycle, your target market will help define. But the data speaks for itself. 7 attempts over the course of three different types of media over the course of 6 to 8 days, spread out with 1 to 2 days in between. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to reach someone on the first attempt or the 6th or the 9th or the 11th, but the data shows that the likelihood of contact decreases pretty rapidly after that 7th attempt. Again, your buying cycle, your customer's buying cycle, your sales cycle will determine the best outreach strategy on this. But using 3 different types of media, I don't know why anyone would only use one, but I highly recommend phone call, email, and mixing in some layer of LinkedIn, a LinkedIn connection request, a message via LinkedIn. The duration, spread out over the course of 7 days and spaced 1 to 2 days in between. So an example, day 1, phone call, email. Day 3, phone call, email. Day 5, LinkedIn message and connection request. Day 7, phone call, email. 2, 2, 1, 2, 7 over using 3 media types over 7 days, spread out 1 to 2 days. And these days are referring to business days. So a successful sales cadence example will be spread out over 10 business days. We talked about those days. So the next key element of this, okay, well, what times, what days? Now, the data drives this here, that the best time of the day, statistically speaking, studying thousands and thousands of cadence and outreach strategies here, that it's the 4 to 5 hour. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to reach somebody in the middle of the day. The second best time on this is first thing in the morning. Again, you see in the kind of trough in the likelihood, the contact that's made in the middle of the day really drops off in that 11, 12, 1 hour range. But first thing in the morning, even better, later in the afternoon. And what days are the best days? So the numbers speak for themselves, that Wednesday and Thursday are the best days to make contact from that first dial. And again, I'm not saying that you don't make phone calls on Mondays and Tuesdays, or you don't make phone calls on Fridays. In fact, I wish I had $1 for every time a sales rep said, I hate Fridays. I can never reach anybody on Fridays. Statistically speaking, Fridays are better than Monday and Tuesdays. And there's a lot of speculation behind that. But if you can build out the perfect schedule, your sales prospecting will need to include some time first thing in the morning on Wednesday or Thursday, later in the afternoon, Wednesday or Thursday. Again, the data drives this, the data speaks to it, but you'll see, as I mentioned before, it's activities that are spread out over the course of several days, best contact made during these time frames. So as we're just about to wrap up, I want to mention again, sharpen your saw. And what I mean by that are things that you can do to invest in yourself, some recommendations that'll help you close the skill gap, improve your prospecting techniques. I have some books that I'll recommend, and there's a ton of resources out there, but take the time to self-improve. So as I was preparing for this and having some conversations and reflecting on the last several years of my career, there's always 3 books that come up almost every time you have a conversation about business development, about selling, about prospecting, gap selling, fanatical prospecting, and the challenger sale. There are tons. I could probably spend an hour doing, having a book club conversation about all the sales books that have been influential on people. Someone that I mentioned before, my personal input on this is Keith Rosen, Own Your Day. I've read and listened to 3 of his books, but again, focusing on that time management, task management, productivity. If you are someone that prefers not to read books, if you want to consume your media in another way, there are a ton of resources on YouTube. LinkedIn Learning, again, here comes LinkedIn, talking about this one more time, but LinkedIn Learning gives you the ability to access different courses. I think that they allow some free over the first 30 days, and then there's monthly service fees. I want to say that like 20 or 30 bucks a month, where you can access a ton of courses based on so many different professional development subject areas. If you'd rather listen to the book than read it, if you'd rather do both, Audible, there's podcasts. For those that use HubSpot as your CRM, HubSpot Academy, they do offer some free things, but a ton of resources. As I switch off this slide here, and as we move to Q&A, if anyone has any other recommendations on books, things that you want to share, please type that in the comments, share that with the group. I'd like to get a robust conversation, or at least a sharing of ideas on some books that have made a difference and that you would recommend to other sales professionals. So with that, right on schedule, and my goal was to have the presentation part of this be about 30-35 minutes. So I know that this is everyone's lunch hour, but I want to be able to spend some time, see if there's any specific questions that I can answer. And for those that may be picking this up and watching the recording later on, if either something comes up and we don't really have time to get to it, if you have a more specific question that you'd rather ask one-on-one, or you're catching this later, I'm going to share my contact information. I'd be happy to have a one-on-one conversation afterwards. So thanks again, Matt. I'd be happy to take some questions now and have a healthy discussion about this.
So I'm going to circle back to Melia's question from earlier about LinkedIn. Specifically, and it's, there can be a longer answer to this than just, the basic answer, but she's asking, when is an appropriate time to reach out to somebody after you've connected with them on LinkedIn? She mentioned what I think a lot of us feel is you feel icky when somebody starts trying to sell you 30 seconds after you accept their connection request. And a lot of times that's probably a bot, and whoever set up that bot for that salesperson probably didn't do a good job of making them seem like a human being. But Mike, do you have an idea of when to actually reach out and maybe not necessarily pitch, but connect after you've actually connected on LinkedIn?
Yeah, my overarching advice on this is don't make it weird on LinkedIn. I think everybody's had that experience of, oh, here's a connection. Okay, this is somebody that looks like they know a lot of the people that I know. Sure, great. You click accept, and they just start, word salad, vomiting on you with, I want to talk. I don't necessarily recommend LinkedIn as a pitch platform. It's really more of a leverage platform that with that successful sales cadence and tying LinkedIn into that, it's a great way for someone to be able to associate a name with a face, for you to be able to do research. You're looking at them, they're looking at you, but I don't believe in pitching or presenting on LinkedIn. I think that LinkedIn is a better connection research platform, and not use the LinkedIn message as a way to just, email's gonna do what you want, phone call's gonna do what you want. Don't use that as a pitch platform. So the answer to the question is, when do you use it? Mix it in, but not as a pitch platform.
What would you say of the different medias that you mentioned, between phone call, email, and social media, LinkedIn? What was the best platform in which to actually present your product? Not necessarily pitch, but actually, show detail and et cetera.
Yeah, definitely not LinkedIn. LinkedIn is an opportunity to share content, so that you can kind of build that content, that brand awareness strategy on there. But from a pitch, from a presentation, a demo, a meeting in there, there is nothing that will be better suited and that will help you accomplish your goals than a phone call or a face-to-face meeting, even if it is a virtual face-to-face meeting. But again, don't pitch on LinkedIn. But from a prospecting standpoint, the numbers show that it has to be really successful, all three. So the combination, today is not the day of crafting out marketing emails in there, but I've seen successful sales cadences where you leave a voice message and then you send them a little tease of information. Hey, here's who I am. Here's what I'm talking about. Here's a link. Here's a video about who we are. Email is a great way to do that in kind of teasing up your email with your voice message, but using the combination, not any one of those in silo. But the best thing to answer the question is get to a one-on-one or a one-on-two connection where you're presenting your products and services to the decision maker, either over the phone or face-to-face.
Great. Lindsay asks, do you ask for referrals after you are 100% sure they were satisfied with your solution / business / service, etc.? Or when is the best time to ask for a referral?
The simple answer is it depends. It depends on what your buying cycle, what their buying cycle is. My simple answer is yes. Yes, there's a time and a place for all those things, you know. And I go back, just a personal story here. Way back in the day, I sold Kirby vacuum cleaners, and part of the demo of trying to sell what was then $1,500, which now I think are over $2,000 vacuum cleaners, is as we're packing up, whether it's sold or not, to put a piece of paper in front of somebody and ask them for the referrals. Hey, are you happy with what you saw? Who do you know that will be benefit from seeing this demonstration and get a free carpet cleaning? So it depends. I think that there are different cases where, as part of the close, ask for referrals. Once you know that they've been onboarded and everything is operating as you've expected, they're happy with your services, yes. The simple answer is, Lindsay, that I've danced around, is it depends.
I sold rainbow vacuums for a very brief period of time. So brief that I never bothered putting it on my LinkedIn profile because I figured it would work against me more than it would help me.
You were that guy. Yeah, I was that guy with Kirby.
Yeah. You know, actually, it taught me a lot, actually. It taught me a lot about being comfortable in an environment in which I wasn't necessarily wanted. So next question comes from Pat Herberger. She says, what type of voicemail message do you recommend? Short, detailed, somewhere in between?
That's a great question. The numbers speak to ideal voice messages are less than 30 seconds. That's where I go back to the practice and the rehearse. That you have to figure that the person that you're trying to connect with, their time is valuable. The numbers show that they stop listening after about the 30-second mark. So be able to practice, rehearse it, a quick hitting message that who I am, why I'm calling, here's my contact information. I'm going to be following this up in an email and reach back out to you in a couple of days. So Pat, to answer your question, something quick. The ideal is no more than about 25, 26 seconds in there. And you realize that 26 seconds evaporates really quickly. That's the point of practicing. But I believe in the short, quick messages. And there's some tools and techniques on that, but leaving your name at the end, repeating your phone number twice. Well, that right there is 5 or 6 seconds alone. So quick hitting short messages, no more than 30 seconds.
Pat also asks, and this is a question that may be a seminar all on its own, how do you recommend getting past the gatekeeper on a call?
Something that I learned that's always the challenge in there is empower the gatekeeper. Leverage the gatekeeper as best you can. Help them to be an internal advocate for you. If that gatekeeper won't pass your information along or give you the right information, ask them if they can pass it along. Okay, hey, I know you're not comfortable with connecting me through to the CEO. Can I forward this email to you and then you can pass that along to them? Or when do you think is the best time? I know I've reached out to you 3 or 4 times now. When do you think would be the best time to reach them directly? But overall, help leverage them, work with them, work through them, not around them. Their job is specific. In all the things that they do, their job is to block you from bothering their boss. So don't be a bother. Help leverage them. Help them be your internal advocate.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Last call for questions. Anybody else have anything they want to add? Of course, you're going to see Mike's contact information here and his contact information at Naker Consulting. So if you have additional questions or you would like to activate Mike for his services, I'm sure he's going to sort of go over that now. I don't want to speak for him. I'm not going to pitch for Mike. That would be a terrible idea. So, Mike, anything else you want to add before we close up?
Yeah, if like I said, if there's anyone that's picking this up later, or if a question pops into your mind, or if the kids are bursting in from the other room as everyone's working from home on a Friday afternoon, and something comes up, by all means, reach out to me. I'd be happy to have a one-on-one conversation. My goal today is really just to share some expertise, some things that I've kind of picked up along the way. I hope some things in here were valuable. But just on behalf of Naker, Jason Pearl, and I thank you very much for having us today. Matt, Gene, Tony, I'm glad that we're able to be together on a Friday afternoon and share some of these expertise. I look forward to the day where we can have these conversations and have these events, and we get to remove the word virtual from programming. So I look forward to spending some time face to face with people again very soon.
That is an excellent segue, Mike, because I'm going to get into just how you may be able to meet some BNSME members in person. I am going to share my screen now, which is something that I thought would be easier than it is. There we go. Okay, so a couple different events coming up in the very near future. By the way, this event itself, if you are attending now, you will be able to see the replay or the recording of this on the BNSME website within the next couple of days. If you're a member, if you're not a member, all more reason to become a BNSME member, so you can watch these events after they've taken place. I'm not sure if you're seeing the screen that I have in front of me, but hopefully you are. A couple events coming up. First off, on Monday, October the 26th at 4 p.m., we have a conversation with Steve Colton, one of the founders of Encore Golf, calling it Staying on the Leaderboard, to stick with the golf theme. Steve's done a lot of great stuff in 2020, despite all of the things that are going on in America and across the world. And we're going to have a bit of a conversation with him about how that's worked out for him in 2020 and what he's looking forward to doing in 2021. Now, the thing I'm excited about, and you don't see, hold on, let me change the screen share to the right picture here, because our marketing team put so much effort into making these banners. I want to make sure I got the right one. There we go. Coming up on November the 13th, we are having a lunch and learn seminar called How to Use Technology to Drive Marketing and Sales Alignment. So this is specific to somebody who actually it's specific to pretty much anybody who is in a sales or marketing environment, all about ROI and the technology involved in providing that ROI to your sales slash marketing team. And what's super cool about this is we are actually doing this as a hybrid event. So this event is available to watch from the comfort of your own home / office / car / tent out in the woods if you went off the grid. But also we are able to allow the first 20 people that register to register in person to actually meet in person at Hansa, which is Uniland's co-working space on Ellicott Street in the city. And the first 20 people that register, obviously, that want to be in person, have the ability to do that. All social distancing, masks, all that kind of stuff, pre-portioned individual meals, etc. But it is going to be a lunch and learn. So you'll be able to have lunch with some friends and see a presentation in person with some real human beings at Uniland's really cool co-working space, Hansa. If you're unable to make it to this event in person, I still recommend, however, checking out Hansa. It's a really cool spot, and Uniland's done some great work. And of course, BNSB board member Jill Pollock is their marketing director as well. So she is very happy that we're going to be using one of her spaces, of course, for this. Before we go, if anybody has any more questions, please let me know. If you have any questions about BNSME or what we do, you can send an email to bnsme@bnsme.org. I also want to thank our new members that have joined us today, Tom Jennings, Jennifer Wittenauer. Jean's been doing that in the chat as well, as I can see. Otherwise, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you again, Mike Belin and Nacre Consulting, Jason Pearl, for allowing Mike to take some time out of his day to be with us and to share some nuggets of wisdom. Once again, I recommend, if you have any more questions for Mike, reach out to him via the contact information that he shared. Otherwise, everybody have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the rest of the fall weather before it becomes more than fall weather. Appreciate all you guys. Stay kind. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Mike.